May 26, 1828. Whit Monday. The German city of Nuremberg glows quietly in the warmth of a spring holiday. The citizens of the Unsolved, the city's main square, are celebrating. Families, merchants, children chasing each other through the lanes. It is, by all accounts, an unremarkable afternoon, and then, at the edge of the square, something impossible appears. He is perhaps 16 years old. His face is pale, almost translucent, as if sunlight had never touched it. His gait is wrong, lurching, painful. His feet, witnesses would later report, seemed to have no experience of ground. In his trembling hand, 2 letters. When approached, he repeated only a few phrases, over and over, in a strange, hollow monotone, nothing else. Just those words. Like a gramophone record stuck in a single groove, he flinched from fire. He didn't know what a horse was. Despite clutching a small toy horse in his pocket, he would eat only bread, drink only water. Everything else made him vomit. To the people of Nuremberg, he was a ghost who had wandered in from nowhere. A blank slate. A feral child who seemed to have fallen from the stars, but the truth was far darker than fairy tales allow. This is the story of Kaspar Hauser. A boy who lived in a dungeon, became a royal celebrity, and was silenced by an assassin's blade. And today, nearly 200 years later, science has finally turned its tools upon his silence. Once Kaspar learned to speak, a process that took weeks of patient teaching, he told a story that chilled 19th century Europe to its bones. He said he had spent his entire life in a cage. A dark room, barely large enough to lie down in. He had never seen another human face. Never heard another voice. Never seen daylight. Never felt wind. His food, always bread, always water, arrived while he slept. He would wake and it would simply be there. He was never ill. He was never beaten. He was simply erased. Kept at the margins of existence. A human being stored like an object. Scholars gave this a name, the forbidden experiment. The terrible question that no ethical civilization would ever answer: what happens to a human mind when it is denied all human contact from birth? Kaspar Hauser was that answer. He could not understand mirrors. He did not know the sun was in the sky and not somewhere behind a wall. When he first saw trees blowing in the wind, he screamed. When candles were placed before him, he reached for the flame with childlike curiosity, and cried when it burned him. On the day of his release, a mysterious figure, Kaspar would later describe him only as a shadowy, faceless man, visited the cell for the first time in memory. This figure taught Kaspar 3 things: how to walk upright, how to write the name, Kaspar Hauser, and how to carry the 2 letters to Nuremberg. Then, without explanation, the man walked him to the city gates, and vanished. Nuremberg adopted Kaspar Hauser with a kind of wild, collective obsession. He was housed with a schoolteacher named Friedrich Daumer, who worked tirelessly to educate him. Kaspar learned with astonishing speed, as if his mind, starved for decades, was ravenous. He became famous across Europe. Philosophers, scientists, nobles, and journalists made pilgrimages to Nuremberg to see the boy from nowhere. He was, many agreed, proof of something profound about human nature, evidence that without society, a person is almost nothing. But within the year, someone tried to kill him. A hooded man found Kaspar alone in a cellar and slashed his forehead with a razor. The wound was not fatal, but the message was unmistakable. Someone did not want Kaspar Hauser to remember who he was. The whispers had been circulating since the day Kaspar arrived. People in royal courts across Europe noticed something troubling, a striking resemblance between Kaspar's features and those of the royal house of Baden. The theory, pieced together from court gossip and political intelligence, went like this. If this theory was correct, Kaspar Hauser was not a feral child. He was the rightful king of Baden. His very existence threatened an entire dynasty's hold on power. This wasn't just a mystery. It was a political time bomb, and someone had already tried once to defuse it with a razor. Even British nobility became entangled in the case. In 1831, the Earl of Stanhope, an influential English lord with inexplicable interest in a German foundling, became Kaspar's self-appointed guardian. He moved Kaspar to the provincial town of Ansbach, away from Nuremberg's protective eyes. Stanhope showered Kaspar with gifts, expensive clothes, fine food, and close observation. Many historians now believe Stanhope was not a benefactor. He was a spy, sent to assess whether the boy showed any signs of remembering his noble identity. In Ansbach, Kaspar grew increasingly isolated. His protectors were fewer. His enemies, wherever they were drawing closer. December 14, 1833. Kaspar Hauser was lured to the Ansbach court garden with a message. A stranger claimed to have a secret about his mother. It was a trap. The stranger drove a dagger deep into Kaspar's left breast. Kaspar staggered home. He managed to describe what had happened: a tall man, a black bag, a promise about his origins. Before collapsing, he died 3 days later. He was approximately 21 years old. His headstone reads, "Here lies Kaspar Hauser, riddle of his time. Unknown birth. Obscure death." For 191 years, the Prince theory stood as the most compelling explanation. The lost heir. The political prisoner. The silenced king. Until August 2024, the result was unambiguous: Kaspar Hauser was not a Baden prince. The mitochondrial DNA did not match. The lost prince theory, the backbone of this mystery for 2 centuries, was officially, scientifically, irrevocably dead. Science has given us an answer. But it is an answer in the shape of a question. If he was not the Prince of Baden, then who was Kaspar Hauser? The leading theory among modern historians is that Kaspar was a victim of extreme child abuse, perhaps born to a minor noble or a wealthy merchant family, who was imprisoned not for political reasons, but out of cruelty, madness, or shame. That he was then exploited by opportunists who saw his strange story as a path to money and fame. Perhaps the assassination attempts were the work of his original captor, panicked that Kaspar's growing fame might eventually lead investigators back to the dungeon door, or, and this door remains open, he may belong to a different noble lineage entirely. One whose descendants have never been tested. What science has done is narrow the circle of shadow. It has closed one vast, romantic door. But the dungeon of Kaspar Hauser's life remains as dark as it ever was. He is the world's most famous nobody. A human being who was denied the world, only to have the world obsess over him for centuries after he was gone. The DNA tells us who he wasn't, the mystery of who he was, that still belongs to the shadows.